Okay, so we want to solve this one and ignore that. You are muted. All right, we want to figure out what is f of x. This is an exponential function. It does look a little bit different than the other ones we've looked at so far, right? This one is decreasing towards 0. It's going to go on and on and on. It's actually, if you remember back a few slides, we talked about asymptotes. And that is where the line will approach it, but it won't ever get there. Okay, and we can talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. So we're looking for f of x equals exponential function is a times b to the x. And we know that a is our initial value. And b is our common ratio. So what is it that we're multiplying by to get our next value? Okay, so our initial value, that is right here on the graph, right? When another way of looking at this is f of 0 would be a times b to the 0. And remember, anything raised to the 0th power is just 1. So it equals a. In this case, when we plug in 0, we get 2. So when we plug in the 0, we get the 2. And so a equals 2. So we can rewrite our equation. F of x equals 2 times b to the x. And now we will look at what our common ratio would be. And the easiest way to do this is to build a table and put some of the values in. Here's our x, here's our f of x. Our first x is 0, our f of x is 2, our next x is 1, and that's 0.6667, which means it's 0.6 repeating. Another way to do 0.6 repeating is that's 2/3, or 6/9. It's 6/9, but if we divide both by 3, then it gives us 2/3. 0.2222, that's 2/9 as a fraction. And let's just go from there and see if we can get our third point, if it makes sense. Okay, so to get from 2 to 2/3, I would multiply by what? 2 times what is 2/3? And if you don't know off the top of your head, you can use a calculator to do this. You would just do 2/3 divided by 2, and that will give you your ratio. This would be 1/3. 2 times 1/3 is 2/3, and then 2/3 times, again, 1/3 is 2/9. Okay, and so our common ratio is 1/3, and so our final equation is f of x is equal to 2 times 1/3 raised to the xth power. And remember, so this one it's decreasing, and that's because our common ratio is less than 1. And so if it was 1, then we'd have a straight line. If it's greater than 1, it's going to be increasing. If it's less than 1, but still positive, right? If it's between 0 and 1, if it's a fraction, it's going to be decreasing. And I said that it will never get to 0, right? It'll get really, really small. It'll get really close to 0, but it will never get to 0. And if you think about that, there's nothing that you can raise 1/3 to the power of that's going to give you a 0. It can get you really close to 0, but it won't ever get you to 0. And so 2 times anything greater than 0 is still going to be greater than 0. So if you try and picture that, you could even plug in some values, put in 1/3 to the 1,000th power, and I don't know, your calculator might actually round that to 0, but it's still not 0. It's just really close to 0. Okay, so that's why you can never get your graph down actually to 0 with an exponential like this. Okay, hopefully you got that and can see how to do it now.